In a village torn by fear and mistrust, one woman's bold act of faith forges a golden thread that binds broken hearts together. Tonight, under a canopy of stars, Jesus shares this powerful tale of trust with his disciples, a tale that reveals the strength of unity and the unbreakable bond that love weaves into every life. The sky was a dark velvet canopy, speckled with stars that seemed to whisper secrets only the quiet earth could hear. The disciples followed Jesus toward the secluded grove with a familiar mixture of peace and curiosity. Yet tonight felt different. The air was thick, as if holding a secret that wanted to spill forth, and each of them sensed it. Peter walked a little apart from the others, his mind heavy with memories of recent conflicts. He hadn't spoken to Thomas in days, a result of a quarrel that left them both bitter. Thomas, on the other hand, wrestled with his own doubts, not only in their mission but in himself. His mind, always searching for proof, found itself questioning his own worth among the disciples. Then there was John, who loved deeply and wore his heart openly, yet even he felt an inexplicable insecurity creeping in, a nagging doubt over whether he truly belonged. The group moved with unspoken heaviness, each carrying private shadows. Jesus had felt it all, the small conflicts, the misunderstandings, the hurt. Tonight, he intended to remind them of something timeless, something to bind them together in a way they would never forget. As they reached the grove, Jesus stood at the center, the disciples forming a circle around him. They waited in silence, sensing that he had something to share that would reach the deepest parts of their hearts. Tonight, he began, his voice carrying a warmth that soothed and unsettled them in equal measure. I have a story for you, a story about trust. A trust that holds people together, even when things seem broken beyond repair. He let the silence stretch, allowing his words to settle, to sink deep into their hearts. One by one, each disciple leaned forward, their curiosity mounting. This was no ordinary parable. This story, they sensed, was something powerful, something meant for them. Chapter 2, The Village Beside the River. Jesus' voice softened, painting a picture in the minds of his listeners, transporting them to a distant village. Beside a vast river that flowed like an endless ribbon through hills and valleys, there lay a village. It was a simple place, yet beautiful in its simplicity. The villagers shared not just land but lives. They were bound by traditions, by love, and most of all, by trust. The disciples could almost see the village, a tapestry of small cottages, the murmur of the river in the distance, and the smell of fresh earth after rain. It felt alive to them, vibrant and whole. At the heart of this village was a woman named Miriam, wise beyond her years. Miriam had lived in this village her entire life. Jesus continued, his words filled with respect and warmth. She was not rich in wealth, but she was rich in love. To every villager, young or old, she was like family. Her heart was open to all, and she had a rare gift of seeing people as they truly were. She listened, she healed, and she was the village's beating heart. The disciples could almost picture her weathered hands, her gentle smile, the way her gaze softened at the sight of others. They felt a strange connection to her, as though her love had reached across time and space to touch them, here in this grove. Yet, as in all lives, Jesus said, his tone darkening, storms come. Chapter 3, The Great Flood. One winter, a storm struck the village with such ferocity that it seemed the heavens themselves had torn open. The rain came in torrents and the river swelled, surging over its banks, sweeping through the village with a rage that left nothing unscathed. The river rose higher and higher, Jesus said, his voice heavy with the weight of the disaster. The villagers clung to each other in the darkness, praying for the rain to cease, but the flood showed no mercy. Homes were lost, fields destroyed, and lives turned upside down. In the aftermath, the village was a shadow of what it once had been. The disciples felt a chill, imagining the devastation. They could almost hear the roar of the river, see the despair in the villagers' eyes, feel the damp chill that settled over their broken homes. And then Jesus' voice grew soft, sorrowful. But the storm did more than wash away homes. It sowed a seed of mistrust. The disciples looked at each other, sensing the weight of those words. Chapter 4. Seeds of Suspicion. As the villagers began to rebuild, a shadow lingered over them, one that wasn't cast by the storm but by fear. The flood had left them with little, and with scarcity came suspicion. People who had once shared freely now looked at each other with guarded eyes. Neighbors who had once been friends began to distance themselves, each guarding what little they had left. Peter, feeling a pang of recognition, clenched his fists. He knew what it was to feel that mistrust, to look upon someone he cared for with a suspicion that gnawed at the bonds of friendship. The story seemed to mirror the conflicts he had experienced, and he found himself drawn deeper into its unfolding. Miriam saw this change, this hardening of hearts, Jesus said. She watched as villagers, once united, began to turn inward, each person's fear feeding off the others. In her heart, she knew that the true danger to the village was not the flood but the mistrust that had taken root in its wake. Chapter 5. Miriam's Request. Determined to heal the fracture spreading through the village, Miriam called the villagers to gather at the square. She stood before them, her voice carrying a steady resolve. Her eyes scanned the faces, seeing the weariness, the pain, the walls they had built between themselves. "We have lost much," Miriam said to them, "but the greatest loss is the trust that once bound us together. Without it, we have nothing." The disciples felt a hush settle over them, as though they were standing there with the villagers, listening to Miriam's words. Then Miriam made a surprising request. "I ask each of you to give me the smallest piece of gold or silver you own. A coin, a scrap of jewelry, whatever you can spare. I promise to use them to bring peace back to our village." Jesus paused, allowing the significance of her request to sink in. The disciples imagined the villagers' confusion, the questioning looks they exchanged. Why would Miriam ask for gold or silver, they wondered. What could such offerings possibly do to repair the village? Despite their doubts, one by one, the villagers came forward, each offering what little they had: a single coin, a broken ring, a fragment of an earring. Miriam accepted each piece with gratitude, her hands trembling with the weight of their trust. Peter felt a surge of emotion as he pictured it, the courage it must have taken for each person to let go of their fear, to offer even a small part of themselves in faith. Chapter 6. The Forging of the Golden Thread. That night, Miriam sat in her cottage by the glow of a single candle, melting down each fragment of metal. She worked slowly, pouring her heart into the task, praying over each piece, asking for peace and healing for her village. The disciples could almost see her, hunched over the flame, her face illuminated by the soft glow, her expression one of fierce determination. They felt the weight of her sacrifice, the depth of her love for her people. As dawn broke, Jesus said, Miriam held in her hands a single thin thread of gold, a delicate, shimmering strand that glowed with a beauty born of sacrifice and unity. It was a symbol of the trust that she hoped to restore among her people. The disciples were spellbound, imagining the delicate thread in her hands, a tangible symbol of something far greater than its parts. Chapter 7. The Circle of Trust. Miriam gathered the villagers once more, standing beneath the old tree in the village square. She tied one end of the golden thread to the tree's trunk, then passed the other end to the nearest villager. "Hold this thread as you walk around the tree," she instructed, her voice gentle yet filled with an undeniable authority. "Let it remind you of what we are to each other, of the trust we have woven together." One by one, the villagers took hold of the thread, their fingers brushing against the delicate gold. As they walked, each felt the warmth of connection, the memories of the trust they had once shared. The thread became a bridge, mending the rifts in their hearts, binding them in a way they hadn't felt since before the storm. Miriam's voice broke the silence. "This thread may seem fragile," she said, "but together, it is unbreakable. Trust is not something we build alone. It is woven from each of us, a gift we give and receive, something we must nurture with love and patience." The disciples felt a stirring within, a realization of their own bond, the invisible thread that connected them. They looked at each other, seeing not merely companions but brothers bound by something deeper. Chapter 8. The Lesson of the Golden Thread. Jesus turned his gaze upon his disciples, his eyes filled with compassion. "Trust is like that golden thread," he said quietly. "It is woven from small moments of kindness, forgiveness, and understanding. Each of you holds a part of it, a bit of gold to offer in our shared journey." His words lingered in the air, and the disciples felt the power of his message. Peter, humbled, felt the weight of his own struggles with pride and impulsiveness. John, who had always sought to love, felt a renewed sense of purpose. Thomas, often burdened with doubt, felt the gentle warmth of acceptance, of belonging. They each looked at one another, feeling the invisible thread binding them together, stronger than any storm, forged from love, trust, and forgiveness. It was a bond that would endure beyond time, beyond distance. Epilogue: The golden thread of forever. As the years passed and the disciples faced their own trials, they carried the memory of Miriam's golden thread in their hearts. In moments of hardship and doubt, they remembered her story, the lesson of unity and sacrifice that had brought healing to a village torn apart by fear. And in every life they touched, they wove that golden thread, binding people together with the same love, trust, and forgiveness they had learned from Jesus. The thread became a symbol, a reminder that trust, once given, could hold forever, unbreakable, enduring. Through every joy and sorrow, every triumph and trial, the disciples lived as one, each holding the golden thread in their hearts, a bond that would last for all eternity. This is end of the story. Comment Amen if you believe in Jesus' blessings. Please like this video and subscribe this channel for more Jesus story like this. May the God watch over you.